they protest us, and so if we own their water, I think they won't be, and we're not actually using it, we're just sending it down to them, so I think they'll be happier that we can get it all approved.
When you talk about the snowmaking, when we first went there, we went to a meeting, Leo and I, up Salt Lake, and of course the naysayers there were saying, well, a lot of it evaporates. You know, we don't get the full tilt of the water that we're supposed to get. It's evaporating into the air, blah, blah, blah. So the lawmakers didn't, you said something about, well, what did they do? And it was just, didn't make sense, and they don't want to talk about it, did they? They said no.
But I've been in touch with the local water people, Nathan Moses in Cedar City, and he's in charge of that office, and they just want us to work out something between the parties here in Beaver. So if we do this and Rocky Ford is, satisfied, we've already have Beaver City online. It used to be that those power plants were owned by Pacific Corp.
Right.
And they would protest everything, but Beaver City hasn't been protesting us, and so I feel good about, being able to work this out.
That would be amazing if you could do the magic, Leo, that would be amazing.
Well, Nathan Moses, you said?
Yeah.
The local guy?
In charge of the Cedar City office.
Okay.
So,
We're gonna try and go that direction.
Does it help to have just face-to-face, whether it's unofficial lunch or just an official meeting with people to sit down and talk, without emotions, and just talk through and kind of build buy-in? Because oftentimes with bureaucracy, if you can build buy-in slowly, face-to-face, as opposed to paper coming across the desk.
They move so slow, we don't have enough time. We've been doing that for 10 or 15 years. But is this the request that you made for us to be able to purchase the Rocky Ford shares? Didn't we do this not too long ago?
Right, I'm working on that with somebody, and there's all kinds of problems,
They're negotiating, and they're being their usual selves.
There's a whole bunch of issues, personal issues with the shares, or,
I guess it was easy, everybody did it.
It's just issues.
Comes to water.
Oh, water's gold.
Oh, water's always gonna be a fight.
Yeah. Well, those guys have been fighting for 40 years. Who was it, Rocky?
Longer than that, they've been fighting for years.
Rocky Ford, and who's the other one?
Kent Slade.
Kent Slade.
Well, Leo, good luck.
I hope that I'll have
Oh, it'll never stop, it'll always be a fight.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, but we did approve you to negotiate that, I remember. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's what I want to make sure that was what we did that time. Okay. So I'll keep going, huh? Eagle Point.
I have a few questions on the agenda items that I requested. So, Brandon, approximately how many meters have you installed, these new style meters?
I think we got right around 30 or 40 installed right now. We got another 20 sitting in boxes that I'm trying to get back into the units, get those installed.
Okay.
So we're.
If you had do you have your own deadline as to when you'd like to have them in place?
Before first snowfall, I want them all done and online and recording.
They gotta be.
Okay. Do you need help drafting a letter to the cabin owners? Because I could do that in 5 minutes.
It might help a little bit. I know we talked about having David send it out with the next bill. Or if I can just get some of these cabin owners' contact information, I'll make 100 phone calls. It don't work.
Well, the other thing is, I hate to say this because Colin's here, but when I was president of the condo association, you can go to the association presidents and ask for that. Can we?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Let's do that.
What do you need a contact list?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's been my biggest issue with the people I know. I have ran this.
I'm looking at you, looking at her, looking at him, thinking, okay.
There's 50 right there.
I don't have all.
You look at me and I'll look at her and then we'll get her done.
About it.
That's right. Okay.
Do you have a snowflake done?
Almost all. I think I got one more building on Snowflake to do.
Okay, how about Wooded Ridge?
Wooded Ridge is going to be one of the ones that I have to put a master meter on because they don't have, that I can find, they don't have individual meters in each unit.
Same with Mount Holly.
So Mount Holly and Wooded Ridge are gonna be a master unit one, and then it'll have to be divided up in their HOA to pay for it.
Okay, and then do you regularly review the data that's coming through the existing meters that are being measured?
The ones that we've installed?
Yeah.
Yes. So, I jump on there,
Like if you look at one smells like one bedroom, and that smells like one bedroom, do they appear to have comparable flows? Do you feel good about the integrity of the data that's coming through?
yeah, the data is pretty good, and they do a flow test on those meters before they send them out, and when they send them, they send the data sheet with it showing what percentage on or off it is, and they're all within like 1.1% or 0.2%. So they're pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're happy, I mean, you feel these things are working?
Yeah, and the nice thing about them is like if, like I've got one on the lower lodge, and I didn't have it programmed for the overflow alarm to a higher number because it's a commercial building, so it uses X amount of gallons within a certain amount of time, and I get a alert on my phone saying there's a potential leak because it's using X amount of water, which is really nice.
Constant flow, is it?
Yeah.
There's constant flow, and so
Yeah.
it doesn't ever stop.
Yeah, if there's constant flow or if it uses so many gallons within X amount of hours, then it'll send me an alert and be like, hey, there's potential problem here.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well, this is, next question is sort of an open question to the board, anyone can answer if they have an opinion, but, so if it takes the rest of the year to get everything installed, then we probably need some period of time where we're measuring all of the data, once installed.
What did you say?
What do people think is a reasonable time to begin implementing this? So once we have the data, then we have to decide, okay, how are we gonna change the billing, which is gonna be very complicated. We can do it, it's certainly doable, but it's gonna be divisive and complicated. And, I mean, what is our plan here? Do we have, I would like to see it all happen as soon as possible, just because we've been working on this for almost 2 years now, I think. What does the board think is a reasonable time to begin implementing, a changeover from a, we'll call it simple methodology, which we're using today, which is probably not equitable, to, one that's based on the actual flows? What do we think is a reasonable time to implement that?
As soon as you can get it in.
so, talking with like David, and I mean, I don't know if that's official, but the way it sounds is, once all these meters are in, there'll be a base rate, which pretty much idolizes what we're doing now on the cost, and then there'll be an overage charge of X amount. And whether that, I mean, that's up to the board, but that's what it sounds like what'll happen, so. Because without having 2 years worth of data, it's pretty hard to get an accurate reading of what's gonna happen, because you've got summer season when nobody's there, and the winter season when all the water's being sucked down. And without having a year or two of that to go off of, it'll be really hard to get a price together to charge per gallon. That's,
Why don't you shoot for January 1, because a lot of your associations are paying the water directly,
yeah.
the service district right now. It'll be a new year, they can adjust their budgets. That would give you time to test and monitor and try to figure out your math on the price.
Is that realistic, do you think?
January 1 to have them all installed. Once I have them installed, what I can do is just pretty much feed you guys.
Before January 1.
Yes, once I have them installed, I can feed you guys the raw data and we can come
Well,
up with
that's
that.
what she's saying, so if we do that and the associations pay, that's probably the logical thing to do. Thanks for letting us know that happens.
Yeah, and that's a good point, is like, we ought to be running it for 2 or 3 months and doing
Yeah.
a soft test.
Because you bill on the quarter right now.
Yeah,
so
exactly, so we
you get
work
it done
out
by
the kinks.
January 1, or
And there
July
isn't
1.
some weird bill where people freak out and accuse us of all kinds of malfeasance, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's live with it for a few months, make sure it's working correctly. The question, I mean, Shane brings up a good point. Do we have software that allows us to program the inputs and say, for this home, the allowance is X thousand gallons, and for this condo, the allowance is X thousand gallons, and it spits out like an
I
actual...
do believe so, so on there you can program it into whether it's a studio or a house or a 3-bedroom or whatever it is. I haven't done all that with the ones that we've installed yet, because I'm just trying to get them installed and we go and tweak everything as we go.
Right, and then who actually takes the output from the software that says 90% of the homes have not exceeded or over take that output and then put it into billing and how, like, do we know, like, the process of who's gonna do what and how that works?
So this company can do billing, and they would just do it per individual meter and send it out with whatever usage they have on it and whatever prices we decide to set.
Okay, so David does.
For $5 a month, right, per meter?
I believe the billing is cheaper than that. So the
Oh.
units, the meters are $5 a month regardless, to be able to get that data
And what's
sent
the
back and
billing
forth. I
cost?
think the billing's like $1.
Well, and Wade and I are talking over here, if you get this instituted in January, we're gonna have a whole year of figuring out.
Cause you really can't tell what people use until they've
Yeah.
actually been in the.
Until you go through
You
the
That-
season.
can't
So
just
are
say
you talking
2
flat
months,
rate
because you're
regardless
gonna be
of
there
the
for
size?
2 months of summer.
What's
So
that?
you probably gotta do a whole year of cycle to really see what's being used.
So is it kind of like, and I think Beaver City's like this, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a flat rate regardless of the unit, regardless of the size of the unit, and then whatever usage over that flat rate?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a one-bedroom condo might be $50 a quarter, and a six-bedroom, 3,000 square foot house is gonna be $50
And
as a flat rate.
another thing, while you guys are doing this, if you're going into these cabins and stuff, I think we need to implement that, requirement to have a low-flow toilet. There's so many toilets out there that are so horrible, and they've been there for 30
Yeah,
years.
I agree.
We're losing a lot.
Well, when they start losing water and they start paying for it, they'll fix the toilet.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But I mean, it would I'm a huge fan.
I guarantee you, though, if they start paying over usage, they'll fix the toilet. They're
Well,
thinking,
some
Yeah,
will.
but, Wade, they've been in there since the 70s, they're terrible, in every regard, they're just junk.
well, maybe the HOA do it then, I guess.
The issue is if we did that, you would have to have like a year or two transition period to allow
Yeah,
everyone to do
but I
it.
think it's realistic that we can tell people they gotta update their toilets. I mean, for those guys in Aspen Crest and stuff in new places, but Mount Holly was horrible.
That'd have to be in,
I-
I don't know how you do that through your building code.
Yeah.
That's the building part.
The data should show up, you know, if you have two comparable cabins and one's
Yeah, yeah.
using a lot more, then the data will show that. But at the same time, we don't use all, we spill over like a huge amount of water, so it's not like
I know.
we're not at the deficit of water, we have more, right now, a good point, but the data will show us that. So, okay, so it's kind of like take care that we all agree that these meters are the right way to proceed.
Yeah.
Beaver has the base rate, and then they have another base rate that they added because they went into bid
Hold on,
on some
Shane.
projects. And so, you know, that's what Beaver has. But,
Two-tier.
keep in mind that our base rate, we have to guarantee that we get the same revenues that we're getting right now by our base rate. So then the other rates is gonna basically punish people that are using more water. And they're gonna have to pay for the water they use, but we have to set up the base rate to make sure we get the same revenue to pay off our, you know,
Obligations.
right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, is we need to see data, and actually, you're right, 2 months in January isn't gonna allow us to make
Really
sure the
see it.
revenues are sufficient for the
Yeah.
whole year. So, I mean, either we tell people that this is subject to change because we have to figure it out as we go, and we're building the plane as we're flying, taking off, or we
I don't think we
have to
said
live
like
with the
that.
data for a long time, you know what I'm saying? Or we have to live with the data for a long time to actually implement it and make sure we're confident that we can cover our
Well,
costs.
the big thing is we're required to have meters on the houses, and everybody's going through the same article.
Yeah, it's a state requirement.
Right.
We've just been kind of grandfathered into not having them, but they're pushing real hard, it's required.
No, and that's fine, but you know what I'm saying, it's like if we come out and say, here's the base rate, we have to, I think we should let people know that it's not an experiment, it's the best estimate. And the base rate is subject to change, and you can't get into a frickin' tizzy 6 months later if we say, you know what, the usage patterns are very different than what we
Well, all you need to
expected.
do
We might
is
have to
tell them,
change it.
here's your base rate, and whatever you use extra over that, you're gonna be charged more.
Right, but to Leo's point, that, if we figure that out based on a low data estimate, we may get it wrong, or we may not get enough money to cover
Okay,
our
I've
costs.
been whipping this horse long enough.
So what Shane was bringing up just a second ago is with these new meters going in and they're being installed inside the buildings, do we still need to require meter pits to be put on all new builds because it costs the homeowner, you know, $5,000?
No, I don't think so with the upgrade of the equipment and stuff now.
And that would be something that would have
I
to
think
be gone
I think
through.
that's outdated.
It is, we would require a curb stop for sure. There's gotta be a way to be able to shut the water off.
Sure.
Those meter pits are costing $5,000 and they're not
Definitely
being used.
I mean, they're out there, they've never, so the water meter pits have never been used.
Yeah.
There's like not a single one on the entire month that's ever been used. Number two, they're a major source of leak, they have basically 4 connections in them. Like, we first came with Polestar, we got all these meter pits from Polestar, and whenever we have a leak, it's because of, you know, a meter pit that, you know, we don't need to have. So it not only is just a complete waste of money, it's not used, but it also is a, you know, a risk to the system because it's a source of leak. So I'm just looking for some definitive, on the basis we've never used a meter pit, and that we all agree that the new water meters are working and that we're going to move forward with them, I would like to make a, you know, I don't know if this is the forum for it, but basically stop requiring meter pits and instead just have a curb stop.
Obsolete.
For, you know, any new construction.
They're obsolete.
So at least, Leo, is there something we need to do with?
Yeah, we need to look at our ordinance and see if we need to change that.
For anyone that's doing water system, they'll put curb stops instead of
Okay.
meter pits.
Leo said he needs to look at the ordinances and see where we're at on it. That's what we'll do.
So it seems like you're,
Sounds good.
whatever you're budgeting for your water, category, is that equal to your base rate,
Yeah.
right?
On the matter of like you know, when we reset, however we reset the water billing, we're just gonna start with the existing amount of water billing we have and reset everything based on that. So I don't see any risk of us not covering what we have. And then what we're trying to address is, okay, if you have, say, a studio cabinet or studio that you personally only use a couple times a year, and then you have a studio that is a rental that's used 100 days a year, the studio that's a rental should be used more longer than the studio that's
Okay, let's move on.
and therefore should be charged more. Or if you have a 5-bedroom home and it uses, you know, some ambient amount of water compared to a studio, then there's a difference.
This is hypothetical at this point. Let's leave it where it's at. We don't need hypotheticals. Let's get the
But it
proof.
probably will, you know, the whole point of this, when Rich brought it up to everyone, was that, you know, a studio should not pay the same as a 5-bedroom home. So that, I think that's how, you know, that's the divisive issue that we'll have to work through as we reset the base rate. But that, you know, it's for now, that risk of not covering our water.
We'll work through it.
Okay.
Next. Any,
I don't have anything else, I don't have anything else.
John,
The cell tower, the archaeologist is coming next week to look for the Native American artifacts to see if the new cell tower will pass the NEPA test. So you know, there's a kind of a major hurdle coming up soon, you know, to get that thing online.
Do they suspect that we have artifacts, or is that just required step?
I think you were on that left. It's just something, I don't want to, it's a required part. So to put up a cell tower, which is a federal matter, you have to do a NEPA test, which is like, I think it has something to do with Native Americans and whether or not the cell tower impacts, you know, their culture and heritage and other things. So somehow that cell tower by the 911 service who built it was put up without a NEPA test. So when we went to get Verizon on it, Verizon said we can't get on this because there's no NEPA. So now they're after the fact doing a NEPA test, and it does involve an archaeologist looking for artifacts on the ground around the tower. So that's what's happening next week.
oh, okay.
And then assuming that goes well, just what's the rough timing of getting Verizon up and going?
They're pretty slow, so I would say probably by the end of the year.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay. Other business? Old business?
And it's not as bad as last summer, but are you thinking take a blade down through the parking lot and around the loop?
Yeah. Yep.
You don't have quite as deep a hole,
Yeah, but
potholes, but
it's still pretty bad.
it's still pretty bad.
Yep. Yeah, we
You
just plan
can
on
just
doing
run
that.
a blade and a little gravel down through there, I think it'd be nice for the summer.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's on
We'll have this-
our list of things to get done.
Okay. All right, we're not gonna go into closed session, so I guess we're waiting for the, famous,
I make a motion to adjourn.
we did it. Thank you, thanks for all participating.
Thank you.
Bye.
Miss Ron.
Great holiday, everyone.